Hello and welcome to the HMO Success webinar. With me, I'm your host, Wendy Whitaker-Large. And I've had a break over the summer, but I'm raring to go. And I'm starting off the next season of this podcast with a brand new guest. My guest today is Ed Kercher. Good morning, Ed.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on.
And Ed is fantastic because he's a young man with lots of vision and drive, some experience in HMOs, both his own and also lots of experience in buildings and architecture and design and planning, which we're going to talk about. But today we're going to be focusing on a brand new innovative technology, which if you're interested in HMOs, could make a massive difference to your ability to do your due diligence. But we shall come to that in a little while. First of all, Ed, I'd like to welcome you to the podcast today.
Yeah. Hi, Wendy. Thanks for having me on, as I just said.
So, Ed, tell us a little bit about your background, how you kind of got involved in HMOs and, why HMOs?
Yeah, so I studied architectural technology, as you just touched on, which is a kind of form of architecture, if you like. It's a bit more technical, working with the sort of technical drawings and managing construction sites. I then worked at practice once I graduated, and me and my business partner, we set up HMO Designers together, and we were specifically working in Portsmouth at the time, and we worked with quite a big developer that was doing kind of high-end luxury HMOs, and we did probably about 50 of those conversions within the space of a year. So within a very short space of time, we did a hell of a lot of HMO property conversions. And we were doing the kind of layout design, the elevations, the concept drawings, taking it through to planning, doing the building regulation drawings, and then helping to kind of manage it through the construction. So because we'd done so many with that one developer, we realized obviously it was a good model and it worked, specifically in Portsmouth, but we wanted to take that model and kind of produce it nationally and go into lots of different areas around the country. So the reason we chose to kind of specifically niche down within HMOs is because I think it's a really good thing to kind of hone your skills and specifically concentrate on one market, because you can provide such a good service to your clients and really high value. So I saw it as a way to become really good at a skill, essentially through the HMO market. And I just really enjoy the space. I enjoy the clients that we work with. I really enjoy the properties. Lots of the people in the space, like you and I, they're quite ambitious. They are property investors. They want to scale up their portfolio, and I just found lots of like-minded people in the property market. So yeah, but very much enjoy working in the space.
Now, 50 projects in 1 year that HMO Designers did. I mean, that is a huge amount of work. Can you tell us what were your learnings from that particular very intensive year?
Yeah, so as you are aware, Portsmouth is in Article 4. So the guidance and requirements from that council are very stringent. So there's lots of things that can catch you out. And although people like to think so long as you hit all of the policy requirements and all of the guidance, you're pretty much set to get an approval, say from C3 to C4, to get 6 people into that property, and then you'd go to sui generis if you were going larger to get 7 people into it. So long as you meet the policy, people like to think you're pretty set to get that approval. But when it gets pulled into committee, which happens a lot in Portsmouth, unfortunately, sometimes you'll get councillors that look at it subjectively. And funny things happen. Like when we just had the last election, we found that lots of HMOs got refused. And the reason for that was that the councillors are coming up for election as well. And they obviously want to look good to the people that are voting for them in the community. And there's a lot of stigma around HMOs. I personally think because, people don't understand the kind of modern method of HMOs now and what developers are actually doing. They look back to the old school, when landlords were just cutting them up and maybe not providing the best accommodation, which doesn't work anymore. But yeah, I think the biggest learnings was probably working through the planning system and the things that can catch you out. And what's been great about that is I can now take that, and I'm starting to invest into HMOs myself, like I said to you, Wendy. So yeah, the things that I've learned through all of that those planning permissions that we did, those 50 projects, yeah, there's lots of little nuances that I can take into the future that, you know, things that we just slightly change and we can mitigate risk by doing things slightly differently. So that's been a really good learning curve.
What about saturation? Because that's, you know, that's a massive amount of rooms to bring onto the market in one go. You know, what would you say to somebody who said, "Oh, you're saturating the market"?
So, I mean, firstly, I'd say, you know, it's our clients, it's the people doing the developments themselves that are looking to produce these HMOs. We're purely providing a service, but the main point is the council has very stringent requirements over these properties. So, for instance, in Portsmouth, you have a 50-meter radius rule. So within 50 meters, only 10% of those houses can be HMOs. And you have quite a lot of HMOs in Portsmouth anyway. So you're only picking areas where it's undersaturated. So really, at some point, Portsmouth will hit saturation, but it will never be able to go over it because the council has the requirements in place. And I truly do believe a lot of the guidance and requirements really should be there, like the density rule, because my office is in Southampton, and there's a place in Southampton called the Polygon, which is renowned for student HMOs. And it's a massive, really dense terrace house area, which is quite close to both universities. And it's been completely taken over by HMOs. And that's why we now have these density rules, so that you don't get these massive pockets of really dense areas. So my answer to that would be there's rules and regulations over it, and that's how we control it, and that's why they're there.
Now, obviously, that experience that you gleaned from that year has also led to then you deciding that you wanted to become an investor. So, but you're not doing it in Portsmouth, probably because you're worried about saturation. No, not really. So tell us about your journey to become an investor. How did that start, Ed?
I mean, like I've said previously, I kind of went about this backwards, because what we did is, you know, provide a service as an architecture practice, and I managed to learn a lot through that, and working with investors and designing HMOs and getting them through planning and you know, managing the construction site. So I was able to learn a hell of a lot through that process, and in doing so, you know, I thought there's only one way I'm really going to be able to be the best service provider in the market for you know, planning applications and building regs drawings specific for HMOs, and that's to do some projects myself and to really get into the nitty-gritty detail of it. And it's not only that, the fact that I wanted to you know, get into the detail of it, it's that I really do believe in the model, and I really do believe in providing kind of luxury and high end, because that's what we focus on, accommodation in kind of multiple occupation. I think it's a model that works, and I think it's really needed, and it's a good investment funnel that I'm interested in myself and my clients are. And yeah, and I specifically have chosen a little town called Eastleigh, which is between Winchester and Southampton. And I think the reason for that is Eastleigh is non-Article 4. And for me, I really value de-risking things, and I always have for my clients. So that's the reason I personally am not investing in Portsmouth, just because it's an Article 4 area. Personally, I would prefer to kind of de-risk it for my own portfolio and do it in a non-Article 4 area.
Well, it's also faster, isn't it? If you're not
Yeah.
working in an Article 4, you haven't got to wait for planning permission. Like you say, you haven't got the uncertainty of planning. I know there's pros and cons to Article 4, and I think it's something which eventually, once you perhaps build up a big enough portfolio, you might find that you want to expand into a different territory, and then you might think, well, actually, this territory is Article 4. I'm going to have to just sort of, you know, bite the bullet and apply for planning. But I think, as you say, there's always a risk that you don't get the planning, and the danger is that your plan B really isn't as good as your HMO plan A, and that's always a difficulty. But yeah, I think you're very, very wise. In fact, it's interesting what you were saying about Article 4, because just this morning I was driving through Stoke-on-Trent, and there's an area of Stoke-on-Trent very near the university which has become very, very saturated with student HMOs. I mean, I should have taken maybe I'll take a photo later actually, and segue it into this video, because although it's a podcast, we've also recorded this as a video and it's going to be on YouTube. So if you're listening and you'd like to see it, please jump over to my YouTube channel. The links will be below in the show notes. But that is also a very saturated area of HMOs, mostly small HMOs. I'd say 3-4 beds, because they're small terraced houses. Some of them might be 5 beds. But you definitely see the impact on the local area there. And there's pros and cons. You know, there's part of me that's kind of against too much government intervention and regulation. You know, we should let market forces work. But I can also see from the point of view of local communities that unless you have some kind of organizational mind helping to shape that area, very soon you can find that, you know, in holiday times and, you know, vacations, it's dead and it's like a death zone. And then when students are there, it's a party zone. And you're just going to find that it's not suitable then for families, for couples, for working people to live there. And I think in a nice mixed community where you have a mixture of properties and a mixture of tenures, that's often where you get better growth, you get better prospects, you get better standards of living. And I think we should be aiming for that. So that's my.
I totally agree. I mean, yeah, the mixed communities thing is a massively good thing. That's what you want on a row of terrace houses. You don't want the entire street to be HMOs. You want a mixture of those properties, and that's where communities thrive.
Now, taking your personal experience of investing, which I'm sure has also led to some very good learnings, Ed, you have then sort of combined this knowledge, both from your architectural background and working in HMO Designers and your other professional work, combine that with your own experience of investing, and you created something which we really want to focus on today, which is really quite an amazing tool. Tell us what it is and what does it do?
So it's called HMO Checker, and essentially it's a software where you type in a property address, an existing value, and it will tell you whether it is a good HMO investment or not. And it does that through essentially what you would get from an architect or an architectural practice or, you know, a HMO service provider, a property sourcer, somebody like that. They would provide to you what's called a feasibility report. So that would be a report which goes through all of the points that you would need to know in terms of the compliance, things like licensing, things like how many bedrooms you can get into it, whether it's in Article 4, for instance, what the commercial value might look like based on the number of rooms and stuff like that. And it then can provide a rating as to whether it's a good investment or not. So the reason we built the software is because, like I said to you, as an architectural practice which specifically provides services to HMO investors, we at the beginning of our journey worked predominantly in Portsmouth, but we wanted to kind of nationalize those services that we were providing. So we started to work in lots of different areas across the UK. And what you find is there is national HMO guidance, but that national guidance is for local authorities, and then they can write their own kind of local guidance and requirements. And you find that pretty much every council does. As soon as you get quite high HMO investments, they write their own guidance on it, and that's for good reason. But what that means is it changes in every single local area. It might be Article 4, might be not. There might be requirements, there might be not, sort of thing. So we'd have a client come to us, they'd say, can this property be a HMO? I'd have to go away, do 3-4 hours research maybe, gather all of this information, create a feasibility report, and then find out that it's a bad investment. So I've lost a load of time, the client's lost a load of time, and possibly the client's lost money through paying us to do the feasibility in the first place. So what we thought was a really good way of doing this would be to automate that process, because the best things to be automated, I believe anyway, is kind of data gathering. Nobody wants to do data gathering. It's just, you know, it's a real slog. You got to just go to lots of different areas and put it together. And they're the things we should be automating. So we did that for ourselves on the back end so that we could qualify these clients for our business quicker. And then what we realized was it was a super valuable tool. So what we've done is we've created a front-facing software that, you know, we're going to publicly release on the 1st of October.
So 1st of October is the big bang day when it's going to become possible for anybody to sign up and
Yeah.
buy this tool. We're going to do a little demo in a moment, but before we do, Ed, let me ask you, how easy or difficult was it to take it from that initial concept where you were doing the work almost manually, gathering this data for each project you were doing, and then combine it into effectively an app? How did you take it from that sort of initial concept right through to being a live app that people can utilize and log into?
Yeah. Extremely difficult. So I always see web development as kind of like building a house. Obviously you've done property developments, Wendy, and a lot of people listening to this podcast would have done. And it's a lot like that. You've got lots of different trades and they all need to do different things. And for instance, you'll have a back-end developer which does all of the kind of matrix code, if you like, which is doing all the hard work. And then you'll have a front-end developer which, does the UX design and makes it all look pretty on the front end so that a normal person can kind of read it in a concise way. And there's lots of other smaller little nuances and trades within that, within sort of web development. So finding those people to begin with was fairly difficult. And I used something called Upwork, if anyone's interested. So you can put on a job description on Upwork and you can find anyone internationally if you want. I stuck to nationally, just because of kind of communication and things like that. And I found 2 developers, one back end, one front end, and it was a complete learning curve for me. I've never had a background of web development in any way. But what I kind of brought to the table was my understanding of the market, and then the front end UX design I had a lot of input into as well. So I've said this before as well, but I do think we went about this backwards to the normal kind of way of doing it, like I have sounds of it in a couple of things. But so,
well, that's because you're probably a very creative person, and
yeah.
sometimes creative people can see a different end from the beginning. They can work their way through things in a slightly unusual way. There's logic, but
Yeah,
it's just a different
yeah,
type of logic. So
yeah.
you still get to the end point in the end, so that's all that matters.
Yeah, and I'm sure the development team, found it very frustrating. But anyway, we started with the UX designs. We kind of created a kind of clunky back end, but then we went straight for the kind of front end, and basically we just wanted to be as simple as possible. So you just put in the property address and the existing value, and that it provides all of the information based off of that. And I'll share it in a minute, but the design of it, the feedback that we've had is that it looks really nice and it's very easy to use, and it's just got a nice feel to it. So I'm glad that we really focused on the look and feel of it, because I think there's a lot of applications and softwares and solutions out there that are really clunky to use, and there's so much information on them. That's the other thing with HMO Checker, because it's so specific to one type of property. You can really hone in on what information you're providing and the look and feel of it. There's prop tech companies out there, I think, that are quite clunky to use, and that, to me, that kind of defeats the object, because if it becomes more complicated when you're using a kind of automated solution, what was the point in automating it? You want it to be as simple as possible, basically.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, I've created spreadsheets galore, and I've had some of my mentoring clients use them, and those that are good at spreadsheets maybe have altered them or edited them, or added extra algorithms or formulas and what have you to perfect them,
Yeah.
and then sent them back to me and said, what do you think about this? I've sort of improved your spreadsheet. And I've thought, well, yes, if you've got a degree in maths, you've definitely improved my spreadsheet, but I don't. And I now find it impossible to use it. And on the other hand, then I have other people who really are not used to using spreadsheets and will just take my rather simple version of a spreadsheet, a deal analyzer spreadsheet, and they're scratching their head after 2 minutes. What do I do here? What do I do there? What does this mean? What does that mean? So getting it right is very hard. And I think that's where, we live in this world of technology where good front end design, a bit like good HMO design, is really key. People don't have time to learn the tools, the back end tools. They want something that's going to be quick and simple, straightforward. So people want something that's really simple to use, easy to use, and also where the design actually guides them through the data. rather than it being data led, it's design led, and that's obviously been what you've you've created here. And when I've been on HMO Checker, I have to say I did think it looked fantastic. I immediately caught my eye, and I thought, yeah, I could use this. This could be a really, really useful additional tool in my sort of toolkit to be able to assess whether an HMO deal is any good or not. Now, I think we've whetted people's appetites enough now. They're probably thinking, let us see this amazing app that you've created. So do you want to share your screen, and you can guide us through it?
Okay, so can you see my screen?
It's coming up. It's just yeah, we can see it now. And if you want to maximize the HMO check, that's it. We've got it. Perfect.
Brilliant. Okay. So this is the main feature of the application. So essentially, this is what we call the search feature. All you've got is two inputs. Okay. So you're going to put in the street address. So that needs to be a full property address. And you're going to put in an existing value.
So just for people who are listening and can't see the screen at the moment, what we have is a beautiful, clean, dark grey screen with HMO Checker in the top left-hand corner, a little logo. The headlines in white and yellow say, generate an AI-powered HMO feasibility report. It's clear, it's kind of, the Ron seal, it does what it says on the tin. We help landlords and property investors make informed and lucrative purchasing decisions through instant, convenient, and in-depth property research, built by property investors for property investors. So really clean entry. Then on the right-hand side, we've got this window which says enter street address, as you just said, and then enter existing property value. And then there's a button below it which says build my report. That's
right. So what I am now doing is typing in a property which I recently purchased in Eastleigh. And this is a property that we're converting into a 6-bedroom luxury HMO. So I put the existing value in, which I purchased the property for, which I put 200,000 in. Agree to the following disclaimer. So you just tick the little box that, is just, I don't want to bore you too much with it, but it's just saying things like, you need to do your own financial analysis and things like that.
Yeah, you're not financially qualified and blah, 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 all of that. Yeah.
So what this is now doing is going away to all of the publicly available information that we have within our own database and that's online. So places like the Gov website, Ordnance Survey for location, it's going to spare room. It's going to lots of different places. It's gathering all of that information together, putting it into a concise report. So Wendy, you just saw it took around, I reckon that was about 15 seconds.
Yeah, something like that. So while it's doing that, while it's kind of crunching the numbers, crunching the figures, you have an interim window, don't you, which says waiting for your report. And there's a little quiz on the right hand side, a fun quiz to do while you're waiting, which again is a great idea. I love it. So that's really fun. It's really nice. The whole look of this, now I'm looking at this on a Windows laptop, although I use an additional screen. Actually, I don't use my laptop screen because it's too small. So I've got an additional 16-inch 20-inch monitor actually, and I'm on the latest version of Windows. I can't remember what that is. So obviously, and I'm using a Chrome browser. Well, in fact, I think are you using a Chrome browser to show this to me? You're on Chrome. Okay. So that it looks really good on that setup. Now, I obviously haven't tested it on any other, or you're not showing it to me on any other browsers. It'd be very interesting to see what it's like on a mobile as well, and see how that works for people. But anyway, sorry, carry on, Ed.
That's called the responsiveness, I think, is what developers call it. And it works on mobile, works on iPad, works on laptop. It's a web app, so essentially you can use it on any device, and that's the reason we built it as a web app. So that, if you're in a property, you're speaking to an estate agent, or, you've seen a property, you're really interested in it, you want to know within 15 seconds, you can do it there and then on your mobile phone. So basically what you get at the top is what we call the report summary. So that's going to tell you what the rating is. That's based off of location, financial analysis, likelihood of planning permission, and something else we're adding in. So this is 1.0 version. We're going to have a 2.0 version, which launches on the 1st of October. we're also going to have the HMO density within that, and that will slightly change that rating as well. So for instance, say you're in an Article 4 area, if it was a really high dense area of HMOs and it was a C3 house, it's probably not a good investment opportunity.
So this would be data that's gathered from the licensing list, would it?
Yes, yes. So we have
Okay.
an API to a national database of licensed HMOs.
Okay. So not small HMOs. You wouldn't know about those.
It's any licensed HMO, basically. So it's
Yeah.
anything that would come up in terms of, when you go in for planning.
Ah, so do you mean license or do you mean planning? Just to be clear, because obviously there's a difference between them. Because you have to have a license if you've got a 5-bed HMO.
Yeah.
But if you have a 4-bed HMO, that wouldn't require planning or licensing.
Yeah, so it's only going to pick up licensed. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's what would be picked up by the council as well in terms of if you went in for a planning application, if you understand what I'm saying,
Yeah.
when they were doing that density check.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's going to tell you what the property type is, how much money you can get out of it based off of the commercial valuation. And the way that it knows the commercial valuation is from predictions. So it's looking at the total floor area and then it's making a prediction as to how many rooms you can get into it. So this one's saying 6 rooms and it's saying your room rate is £700 in that area. So if I click here, that will take you straight to spare room. And what you can do here is look at, room rates in the area. This is taking an average of those room rates and providing that to you as the room rate. You can edit that further down, and I'll show you that in a minute. So the next tool is the HMO density estimator, like I said. So this will essentially go up to 100 meters. You can take it down to 50, and it's going to tell you how many licensed HMOs there are around it. So this being a non-Article 4 area, you could still get planning approval for this HMO if it was over that 10% density. But if it was Article 4, you would likely not gain planning permission for that, say, 6-bedroom HMO, so C3, C4.
Yes, because of the density. Yeah. So
because of the density.
it's. I mean, I think in a non-Article 4 area, I can see why it'd be useful, but it's probably not so relevant because you're not having to apply for planning permission unless you're going for a 7-bed or more.
Yeah.
But obviously in an Article 4 area, this is really key to know this.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
It's also quite useful. I use it in non-Article 4 areas. Obviously, I invest in Eastleigh, which is non-Article 4. But what I use it for is just seeing where the really dense pockets are. So if you pick up a super dense road, you're probably not going to want to invest there because there's so many other HMOs and you might pop it over that saturation point.
Interesting.
And
Yeah.
if you find an area where there's literally no HMOs, that's kind of an alarm bell as well. So there's a real sweet spot. But this is a real good area by the looks of things where I purchased this one because you've got a couple of HMOs, so they're useful within that street or within that locality, but it's not super dense. Every house isn't a HMO, for instance.
Yes, quite. You know that somebody else has kind of been the pioneer in testing whether the market works. It clearly does work because they're in existence. We don't have data about how much money they're making, but what we do know is that we've got some HMOs, and therefore that's always a good sign. You're absolutely right. You don't necessarily want to be the person who is the first person in an area to start investing in HMOs, because I always think, well, why hasn't anybody else thought about doing this? If it's so good, why hasn't somebody else thought about it?
You don't want to be the first to a party, do you? So.
Yeah, exactly. So no, you're absolutely right. But on the other hand, as you say, you don't want too many either.
No. And something that's really key for me is that with my investments, I'm going for a commercial valuation. So you have to have comparables. If you don't have comparables in that area, the valuer is not going to value it commercially because he can't find other HMOs. So it's key to focus on an area if you're looking for a commercial valuation that does have some comparables. So it's going to tell you where they are, what addresses, and the occupancy. It will tell you if it's in Article 4, like I said. It will tell you if it's conservation. So conservation is really key as well, because if it is a conservation area, you're not going to be able to do the kind of full width, big bulky dormer at the back under permitted development. You're going to have to go in for full planning, and they're probably going to want to reduce it down. You have to go in for full planning for any kind of external alterations. So that's a really key thing to know. Here is really useful tool. So when I'm onboarding people onto the application, this is the main thing that I focus on. And this is really key for HMO investing. So what this does, and we are the only provider to have a fully national scope of the planning system for HMOs. So we have scrapers for every single local council nationally in England. And so we have a full database of every application that's gone into planning for
Very
HMOs. So
good.
you can
Yeah,
scroll
very
through all of those.
unique. Yeah.
Yeah, you can scroll through all of those approvals. You can scroll through all of those refusals. And I would always say, have a look at an approved, have a look at a refused for what you want to do. Say it's C3 to C4. Look at what the case officer said. Why did that one get refused? Why did that one get approved? Look at the policy. Look at the requirements. He will literally cite within his report all of the policy that he's looking at or she's looking at. So it's very useful to go through that and to know, the salient points. Is parking an issue? Do you need off-street parking? Where do you need to put the bin storage? Where does it need bike storage? Stuff like that. Also at the top, you would have noticed there's likelihood of planning. So what that is basing it off, this is the non-Article 4 area. So what it's looking at is lawful development certificates for C3, C4, and then sui generis applications. And it's looking at how many have been approved and how many have been refused. And then it's taking, a percentage of those. Anything that dips below about 20% is going to give you a poor outcome. And for instance, somewhere like Croydon, which we've done work before, the council really are kind of against HMOs. So you've just got to be careful when you're looking at new areas that what you're looking to do is, if it's not going to happen, then you need to know that. It will also look at the permitted development rights of that property. So it's going to tell you what the property type is and what permitted development rights you have. So dormer loft conversion, rear single story extension, the way that you can optimize that property. It will suggest a project proposal. So what you need to do to get it up to, say, a 6 or a 7 bed HMO. And then down here is the financial analysis. So it provides you the room rate, which you can change if you think it's got it wrong, and maybe it's being a bit conservative. Because depending on where it takes the average of spare rooms on the market at that one time, there could be quite bad rooms on at that time, if you know what I mean, because all the good rooms have been taken. So it could give you a lower rating. So you can edit that. It's going to give you a multiplier, which again, you can edit, and it will give you the number of rooms that it's predicting. And then it just compares that to the existing property value. So it's looking at the projected commercial valuation next to the existing property value, and it's telling you, what that increase in value is here. So that's 61% for this.
Can I ask you a quick question about the multiplier?
Yeah.
So you've used rather than a yield base, you're using a multiplier base. Did you think about which was the best route to go down on that kind of multiplication, I suppose?
We did. I mean, interestingly, a multiplier is essentially a yield. So you're kind of taking the yield in the area and timesing it by the gross income. But the way that we do it, I would say right now, in predicting a commercial valuation is slightly crude. However, this is generally how most of the lenders, when you're looking to get a commercial valuation on a HMO, would do it. So I've seen this within surveyors' reports. They would kind of multiply the gross income, typically by 10, but the further up north you get it, in England, the yields do change. So the user here is kind of asked to put their own multiplier in. That's why you have that disclaimer at the start, and that's why you need to speak to a financial advisor, a broker, or somebody who really understands that area specifically. We are actually looking to partner with a lender and surveyors and some sort of kind of financial provider. So if anyone's listening to this and they want to maybe integrate or have a partnership with us as HMO Checker and maybe make the financial analysis a little bit more intelligent, super open to that conversation. So right now it provides to you a pretty good estimate of what that commercial valuation would look like. But like I said, we're not financial advisors, so you do need to go away and do your own research, but it will give you a pretty good idea.
Great.
So there's just a little bit more about the financial analysis. Don't want to bore you too much of this, but it's just looking at comparing different number of bedrooms within that HMO. And then right at the bottom, you've got what's nearby. So it looks at what universities, how close are they, shops and amenities, how close are they, buses, trains, and hospitals. All really good things to know for HMOs. How close are those things to the HMO? So yeah, that's pretty much an overview of the HMO Checker.
So I mean, as I say, I think it looks really good, really usable, really quick and easy. You're going to get a great report straight out the back end. I can see how also, along the top, on the top bar, you've
Yeah,
got search, save, export, user list, which is really, again, I presume that some of those are things that, you can save a search. So if you've done a report on an HMO, you can save it and add it to your favorites and go back and have a look at it, which again I think is really useful. Yeah, you're
yeah,
saving it now, so you can save that to your saved
yeah. So basically,
folder.
the saved report feature, it will save it as a live frozen screenshot of the report if you like. It's still gonna have the nice little features where the dial goes for the rating and all that stuff. But what you can do is share that with anyone that you need. So say a JV partner, a solicitor, a broker, anyone that needs to see this report, you can share that as a direct link with them. They don't have to have an account. It's only you that needs the account, and you can share publicly the reports with anyone. You can also, like you touched on, export it, and what that will do is save it as a PDF, and then you can do whatever you want with that PDF as well.
Very
On
nice,
the
very nice. Yeah,
on the dashboard, yeah, you've got all your saved reports, what the outcome was, what the address is, and they're saved there, in perpetuity. You've got the success documents, so we've got a HMO appraisal calculator on there, the manual for the application, and we're going to be adding to these monthly. So they're just useful little things that help towards your journey of analyzing HMOs basically. And then a few other things like your subscription and partners, HMO service providers basically.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and we're
So at
looking
the
to
moment,
expand on that.
this doesn't integrate with anything like Zoopla or Rightmove, or you'd have to find the property yourself, but put in the address and the postcode on the first page, and then HMO Checker will do all the work on it.
Yes. So what we are building at the moment is a way that you can essentially, so when you look at a Rightmove listing and it doesn't show the full property address because the agent doesn't want anyone knowing on the internet what the full property address is because they might
Mm,
steal their client and go direct to vendor, right? That's my understanding of why they don't show the full property address. They want to maintain their data. So what we've been able to build is a system that can find the full Rightmove property address at about a 90% accuracy. So if you put the Rightmove URL into this tool, it will tell you what the full address is, and then you can
great.
use that to put into the checker. Because the only other way to do it is to call the agent, which again, pretty laborious. You've got to call around and try and find that full property address. So that's something we're building. We are also, and this is hot off the press, looking at a system that essentially takes, say, when you set up your Rightmove alerts, and then it sends you properties
Yeah,
via email, sorry. And you'd put in, I'm looking for terrace houses, a 3-bed in Southampton, and between 200 to 300,000 or something. It will take that and it will automatically put it through the checker, and then it will send an email to you. So instead of having to manually do it, it's totally automating that process. So it's going to be automatically sending you, really great deals that are coming onto the market.
amazing,
Yeah.
amazing.
So
So that's
that's
going to be
something.
incredibly helpful as well.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. That's just another, any way that we can automate the processes for HMO investors and developers. That's what we're ultimately trying to achieve.
I think that's fantastic. So, Ed, the question that's going to be burning on people's lips as they listen to this and thinking, I want one, I want one. How do they get a subscription?
So at the moment, all you can do is join the wait list, and we are quite oversubscribed on it at the moment. However, it launches on the 1st of October. Everyone gets a chance to get those initial spots. We only want to open it to 200 people initially because we want to provide a good service and we don't want the servers to go mental and crash. So yeah, we're opening it up to that amount. But if you go onto the wait list, you do stand a very good chance of being able to join on the 1st of October. It's a subscription basis. We do it on a credit system, so you get a certain amount of credits depending on what you think your usage would be for this tool. Starts at £29 a month. Middle package is around £100 a month, depending on those credits that you're going to be using. So yeah, if you want to join the waitlist, go to hmochecker.co.uk and you can join the waitlist there.
Great. And we'll put all the links below in the show notes as well, so that if anybody wants to get on that wait list, do it now before the 1st of October, because once it launches on the 1st of October, I think it's going to start to go a little bit crazy, and Ed is going to have a queue virtual queue out the back door of people wanting to sign up. So make the most of this. You heard it here first, folks, on the HMO Success podcast. And we really want to encourage you to use this, because I think that lots of people who are a little bit uneducated when it comes to HMOs find navigating the whole due diligence really quite a stumbling block. And it's really quite a challenge for them when they've been perhaps, used to doing it on single buy to lets, which are lot more straightforward. You've got a lot more challenges with HMO, so make sure that you use what's out there, and this is going to be a really, really good tool to help you to find your next HMO project, to make sure that the initial due diligence is done. As we would both say, myself and Ed, neither of us are registered with the FCA. We cannot be personal financial advisors. You must ensure you take professional advice as well about what you're doing, but this will certainly give you a really good head start to be able to make decisions about properties that you're out there looking at every day and making the most of your money. So, Ed, I'd like to say a massive thank you to you for being here today. It's been great to have you on as a guest. And good luck with the launch. Looked forward to finding out how it's all gone. And please do come back on the podcast. We'll have you back in another few months, see how it's going, see how much it's growing, and what other developments you might have in the pipeline, because it sounds like you've got some new ideas that are being implemented all the time. So no doubt we'll see lots of new future developments for this fantastic new app.
Yeah, thank you, Wendy. I just want to say thanks for having me on. Really enjoyed it. And yeah, just one last thing, we'll get a kind of promotion code for you for the people listening to this podcast as well. So yeah, that will be probably within the description of the podcast, right? But yeah,
we'll put it down below so that you get a bit of a discount, special offer. And yeah, you heard it here first. So Ed, all the very, very best with your launch on the 1st of October. No doubt we'll be keeping our eyes and ears peeled on social media and email. And if you are interested, just go to hmochecker.co.uk. Is it .co.uk or is it .com?
.co.uk.
Right. Perfect. hmochecker.co.uk. Sign up, get on the wait list, and then you will be. Ed is very good at communicating. As soon as you sign up, you'll start to get some emails, and you'll see the app in its current working format, which is excellent. Really, really good. Brilliant. Thank you so much. Good luck, Ed. Take care now.
Appreciate it. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Bye.